this meeting for Tuesday, May 28th, 2019 to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everybody, and to everybody that's watching us via live stream at Facebook. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and have been made available to the City Council at least 2 days in advance of the meeting. The items will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the agenda and considered in normal sequence. On tonight's consent agenda, we have City Council minutes for May 13th, 2019, resolution approving disbursements through May 28th, 2019, public gas permit for the Sueur Fire Department, and distributed energy resources resolution. Can I go ahead and get a motion to go ahead and approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is unanimously approved. Public comment provides an opportunity for the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Persons wishing to make a comment must sign up in advance of the meeting on the sheet provided and identify themselves by providing a name and address. We have nobody that has signed up for tonight. Does anybody from the audience wish to address City Council? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to go ahead and close the public comment portion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. We have no public hearings tonight, so we're going to move on to our regular agenda. And the first item on the regular agenda would be, give me just one quick second, 8 Alpha, which is the Sueur Meadows 2 rezoning ordinance, second reading. City Administrator Krugel.
Mayor and members of City Council, before you is a continuation of an item that was brought forward on May 13th. It's the rezoning ordinance for the Sueur Meadows 2. I'll go through just a little brief information about the site. The location of this is on 429 Turtle Street. It's roughly 5.93 acres. It currently has 40 units. Previously, the City of Sueur City Council approved a planned unit development and a conditional use permit for this site. Currently, the zoning line goes through the middle of this parcel, or through a part of this parcel. So some of it is zoned R4, some of it is zoned R3, and that's what we're essentially cleaning up here. If you look at this, you can see the site. R3 is the bluish color, and R4 is the purple color. So what this is doing is it's zoning the entire parcel R4, and that's essentially what the ordinance reads. So the action tonight is to either evaluate the ordinance, read or waive the second reading of ordinance number 581, and then consider approval of ordinance number 581. It's recommended by staff to waive the second reading along with approving the ordinance.
Anybody have any questions regarding the proposed ordinance for the Sueur Meadows 2 rezoning? Seeing none, can I get somebody to entertain a motion to approve?
So we get to waive the second reading.
I'm sorry, to waive the second reading.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried.
Now we approve. Now we approve the ordinance. All we did is waive it. We waived the reading.
Okay, so we just waive. Now we're going to go ahead and approve, right? Okay, entertain a motion now to approve ordinance 581 for the Sueur Meadows 2 rezoning.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Now move on to line item 8 Bravo, which is the utility billing system approval, city administrator approval.
Mayor, 8 members of City Council, before you tonight is a proposal that we received from NISC to basically swap out our utility billing system that we are currently using for water, wastewater, electric, and stormwater with the NISC version of it. I have Public Services Director Rich Kuchera here and Zach Dowd to talk about the financing of this. Really, I'll just turn it over to them and they can talk about it. It's something that we've identified in the capital improvement plan, and we've interviewed 5 vendors. So I'll turn it over to Rich.
Okay, Director Kuchera.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, as part of the whole meter transition program, it was identified that a lot of the data that was needed for reports and for operations outside of financials was not able to be obtained through the current utility billing software. So with the metering project, I set out to look for a different type of vendor that could offer, and I met with staff to find out what we needed to have for sure, and those are the items listed up there. We need to have customers wanting budget billing, wanting real-time customer service tracking, so we have a customer portal where they can see, and staff on this side can see the same thing. We want to make sure we could tie each account to the property IDs for tracking for further. Another big thing was get the vendor to host all the stuff on their server, so we're not maintaining hardware and software equipment on our side. It's all maintained on their side. And another thing is time of use billing. Currently, time of use billing is currently done on a notebook, scratchbook, type Excel type something-ish. Yeah. Zach might know more about that. I don't know how close that was there.
Well, before we get to Zach, a question for you in regards to the Tyler Encode. What is that all about?
Tyler Encode is it's a finance and utility billing software that we currently use.
Okay,
But
and
it's
so
two separate parts.
to be clear now, this new software would integrate with this Tyler?
It would integrate with the Tyler financials.
Okay. Yeah, that was something that wasn't quite clear.
And another feature here, customers would have ability to set defined alerts for dollar amounts if they want to. If they're trying to stay on a budget and they say we don't want to spend more than $70 a month for electric, they could put that in there if they would get a text, voicemail, call, email, whatever, saying that, hey, you're approaching your $70 per month budget cycle.
And to be clear, there's no charge for one of our customers to go ahead and look something up online?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Director Kuchera before we get into the financials? Thank you, sir. Director Dowd. Financials.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I can add any additional questions that you may have for like the encode software and stuff. It's just a separate module that we use. So we have basically modules within the system within Tyler Encode software, and that's our overall software for the city that we run on. We went from payroll last year, 2018. We went from payroll, which was in the Tyler Encode system as a module. We went down and went with AE and Workforce Solutions and doing a Paylocity system now, which is hosted by a third vendor. And we're kind of doing the same thing with NISC, is get that module into something more that we can use and not something that's basically cookie cutter, because our city's not a cookie cutter city, and we need time of use billing, and we want tracking for public service side and finding water leaks and being able to have customers, have those alerts and stuff too. So those aren't allowed in that cookie cutter Tyler software that we're able to use. The financials are fantastic and very easy for me to use and understand and get your numbers and stuff like that. But the utility billing software is fine to understand and see its information, but it's the public service side or Rich's side of things that he can't see information that he needs in order to get that done. So that's why we identified that we need something different, and what can we get to provide the best customer and the best response for us as well as a city, so that we are able to get the correct numbers out. So in the capital improvement plan, we had $260,000 set aside for a metering system upgrade overall, which was $100,000 electric, $90,000 water, and $70,000 wastewater. So that was identified in the CIP plan. And then we also had a $30,000 amount in the administration area of CEP, for the utility billing software, which is this NISC system. Rich and myself and Jasper went through and we estimated about $125,000 to be the estimated cost in 2019 for the metering system upgrade. So overall meters out in the city be about $125,000. So the total funding available for the utility billing software, the 260 minus the 125 gives us $135,000 left in that metering system upgrade project. We got the $30,000 that we identified for basically this kind of software, some sort of upgrade that we can do for the city overall, gives you a total of about $165,000 total dollars left in the CIP related to utility billing overall. So the metering project and the utility billing software will then be communicating together simultaneously and will be able to be used much more quickly. NISC is able to work with, what is the meter called again?
Badger, or census.
Census. So the NISC system is able to communicate with the census system directly and not have any sort of flaws, or is able to update basically simultaneously with that census system. The Tyler system would have to have some sort of upload. It would only be done either weekly or however many times we could do an upload to it from the census system. So the census system would automatically communicate with the NISC system, but the census meters that we're putting in for this meter upgrade project, I would have to do a physical upload into Tyler and wouldn't work simultaneously like the NISC system would. So basically it's just an additional process that a staff member would have to do in order to get that system updated, and then it's not again on real time, it's also being lagged. So the implementation cost, which was mentioned in the memo, is $112,000 for data conversion. So that's like cost of us going to Tyler and say we need information out of the Tyler system to get our residents' addresses and what services they are currently provided, and having them doing basically a data dump is what they call it out of the system. We're estimating to be about $10,000. No, I requested stuff and no costs have come through yet, but I'm assuming as soon as they start asking for more things out of their system, they'll have more dollars to come out. And then we give ourselves a little cushion of a 10% contingency if something happens here or there, or we get further into implementation that we're able to do more of it in this year. So the sooner the better. Our kind of goal is to be implemented as soon as possible, just so we can give the best results for our city and also for our customers. So that gives $133,000. So it gives us about $32,000 left in that CIP budget in order to fund other things that may come up with this metering system and not, handcuffing us to be super tight. In total, the $133,000 implementation is under 1% of our total enterprise fund revenues. So I went through in total for 2018 the number of revenues that we have, and that's obviously not taking the 2019 increases in rates. But 2018 dollars, we had about $12.5 million worth of revenues just in the enterprise fund. So that's electric, water, and wastewater. So of that, under 1% is the $133,000. So I think it's a small investment of additional dollars this year that will help us out drastically in getting better reads, better information on the system. It's going to help us with overall just information that's in the system. So as Tyler was set up, 4 or 5 years ago when we switched over in 2014, lots of things have changed. We've had new meters, and we've got all kinds of stuff that happened and changed. And a lot of stuff's changed since we implemented Tyler. And a lot of things have been really good that we since we implemented Tyler as well. I stand for any questions along with Director Gutierrez.
Any questions for Director Dowd? Councilmember Families.
Not sure it's really a question as much as I really wish that slide would have been in the packet, because it would have saved me a lot of typing. Because I was going through doing the math of what we had projected at $30,000 for the year, and then looking at the $65,000 and what they had proposed, and going through looking at how much we were really looking at, but not realizing how much was in for the CIP for everything.
Yeah.
Would have made a lot more sense to have gotten that.
I agree. Jasper, after we sent the memo on the budget back or whatever, I think the questions came through to Jasper, and he had us do a meeting today to kind of get those numbers straightened out so that they've been easier to understand. So we apologize about not putting those numbers in right away, and we should have talked about it beforehand before we sent out the packet. So apologies for that.
Any other questions for Director Dowd?
I have some, thank you.
Councilmember.
I'm gonna have 3 actually, maybe, depends on how you answer the first one. How do we get updates for this? This is software, therefore there'll be updates. How will that happen?
Then
Part two of that question is what would it cost us?
Then IC software.
Yes.
That is in their system, so that's a cloud-based software. So all the upgrades or the updates and everything else would happen on their side, and it's part of our cost that we pay monthly for. So there's no additional cost for the whatever cost of their. It's on their server. It's not on our server here.
Okay, now, wait a minute. The costs you gave us were a one-time cost, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
What
correct.
are we talking about a monthly cost then?
Go ahead.
City administrator.
I was gonna add, we do pay monthly maintenance on this, that hosting fees, fees for sending out the utility bills. I believe that the fees just to basically host and to update the software are just over $5,000 per month. And the additional cost, I believe there's a number in there around $5,700. That additional $700 a month is to actually send out the bills themselves. So there will be there could be savings if people sign up for paperless billing, and we're thinking about ways to help people do that, help facilitate that process. So right now it's just over $5,000 a month, so $60,000 a year.
Yeah, the backside of the contract, what do you call it, has those figures. I just wanted to be sure that I understood. Let me try a new spin on this. It's very important. Please, between the two of you, or with the two of you, tell us what this does for the customer and the sewer, not for the city, but what do the customers get? In particular, talk about time of use bill.
I'll do time of use, you can handle the rest. For the customer side, I mean, you can see there's a few screenshots off a smartphone device, so they are actually able to view the daily readings. Our current system, currently right now they get a snapshot point A to point B, which would be the last reading to the current reading. Even going forward with the new metering system, they would still not get the time-to-time data off of Tyler. As you can see there, you got individual days broken out. You have the actual usage per day. You can see if you have issues. Yeah. So I as a customer, it gives you the opportunity to see a lot more data and to see it a lot faster instead of waiting for that bill to show up. And everybody has the option to go to this, no one is forced to. The other benefit on the city staff side, if someone is looking at their device and has problems, they can contact us. We can look at the same thing they are and communicate with them and answer questions exactly what they are looking at. Your time with these.
So I guess that would be more like, water leaks, electrical usage that's abnormal. You catch those things in a day or in a week, whereas now we can't catch them until a month end. And then by that time, we've already had readings past that. So like our bills are read, our meters are read somewhere around the 25th of the month. And then the bills don't actually go out until the 1st or so. So you got 6 days there. Well, if your bill's super high and you have an abnormal usage, you don't see that until the bill comes out. And then your bill goes out and then you go, whoa, I didn't have that much usage. And then it's being a toilet leak or something's pulling power that you don't know. Well, now we're 15 days past the next bill, where we're making adjustments and having to fix things and go back and work with them to make sure they get those leaks fixed. Whereas with this system, we'd be able to see it in a day or in a week. Something happens.
So we're able to go ahead and see it on the day, that being the city, and so the system's looking for anomalies that would exist from month to month, and they start to see something go up in a given day.
Correct.
It goes ahead and notifies the customer, hey, the city's coming on out because we noticed that you might have a water leak and we want to go ahead and take care of it right now. I mean, maybe you can explain how that system's going to work.
That would fall under the customer side. If the customer set up those protocols in there saying, I'm on a $70 a month or I'm on a $70 water sewer bill, hey, it's the 10th of the month, you're approaching it, it would send you a notification. And now, hey, you can call the city, you can look at here, see what's going on, why is this happening. But it's up to the customer to define it.
The customer has to identify the problem, not the city.
No, the customer has to define the parameter of what they want, what they're looking for. Because if we tried to say, hey, we want everybody in the city not to have over $150 electric bill, well, that's not going to work.
City administrator approval.
If I may, it's really what we're going to look for as a city, and what this will really help us do is look at users that are exceeding what they probably should. So you have a residential property, and let's say we look at and we can run a report that says anybody that's running over 10,000 gallons per month. We could run something like that. We won't be able to set up each individual property the way we think that they should be. That's up to the homeowner. But in general, we can flag some of these properties so that, you know, maybe they're no longer a residential property and they're now a rental or something like that, where we can look at their use for both water and electricity to kind of, you know, have a conversation with them, because maybe there's something going on at that time where, you know, a neighbor is using their electricity or their water or something like that. And we can help figure it out. But the day-to-day, you know, if we're using 50 gallons a day or something like that, that's really up to the homeowner to set those parameters if they choose.
But we're gonna have the historical data from the current system, so when we go ahead and implement, or when we download the data into the new system, we're gonna know what the averages are for a given account, correct? So if we see that there's a problem where a typical electric bill for a customer is $50 a month, and now we see the spike in usage, is there a way to go ahead and have that flagged within the administrative side so that it can be investigated? Or again, does it rely on the customer to report the problem?
If I may,
Please.
I would say I'd rely on the customer. That's kind of getting a little too much into what individual private properties are doing with their water and electricity. You might have a residential property that, you know, wants to use that much or has something going on. You know, but we'll make sure that, you know, the tool is available and anybody who's interested in it knows how to use it. As far as the city itself, you know, what does that process look like? Are we sending out notices to people and, you know, they're ignoring them? And you know, I think the way to do it is on the front end, really educate the people about how to use the tool, and if they choose to use it, then they can. You know, if there's issues where after the fact, because I know right now the process goes after the fact, after the bill goes out, somebody comes in maybe a month or two later and says, well, wait, my sewer charge is like 4 times as high as what it was supposed to be, or what it normally is. You know, what happened? And it's like, well, let's talk about what happened at that time, you know, of the month, and we could, you know, the scenario that I'm talking about is ice dam removal. You know, something like that happened in March. We were able to identify it, and we were able to document it and figure out, yeah, that actually did happen. It's an anomaly. You know, probably didn't go into the sewer. We'll give you a credit, but it's really up to the resident to do it. Now, for us to put in a parameter like that, you know, maybe in the future we could request something from like NISC to allow for those types of alerts to be sent out to people if they're, you know, 50% outside their average or something like that. But that's not what we're looking at doing here. It's all customer defined alerts.
I think it's a lot like data usage on your cell phone. I think people are getting pretty accustomed to checking that. There's a lot of different technologies that we kind of keep our eye on. And this just kind of adds to it. I think if it gives people an opportunity to kind of check it, they know what their parameters are, and I think people are getting pretty accustomed to the digital era, and I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for people.
Let me go ahead and Director, share what you have.
One key thing I did forget about here is rental properties. So for rental properties, the renter will be able to have an account to do all their stuff. The landlord can also have an account to monitor their renter to make sure they're paying the bill, keeping up on their bills, and not letting it get out of hand. So,
Councilmember families.
Okay, that makes life easier for us. What you're saying seems a little bit more generalized than what we were originally talking about, so I just want to clarify on it. It sounds more that you can set a parameter so you can be at $70 a month and try to keep it on a budget. But for somebody who had in 2 incidents combined over 150,000 gallons of water and 2 large bills, we were originally talking that in a system like this, you could be notified if you're exceeding a certain amount even within a day, right? You can have an alert. You can set up your own alert for that type of stuff.
I think, as far as I'm aware, you're able to do that as long as you do it within the system of NISC.
Okay.
if I may,
Please.
I'll use an example in how you set that up to get alerted if you have a water break or something in your property. So let's say your property, has very little use and your average water bill is $50 a month. We'll say you can set a parameter. Anytime my bill goes above what that average is, then I'm going to get an alert. So if you have a water main or water break in your property, and it's the 5th day of the month, and you're at $50, you'll get an alert, and you'll know, well, something's going on here. I'm already at my threshold. If you get that alert at the end of the month, and it's $50 and it's day 29, you say, well, that's probably about where I should be. So in that sense, the NISC model, what they use is dollars. So you can say what my dollar amount threshold is. So it wouldn't necessarily be, if I use more than 25 gallons a day or something like that, it would be once you exceed a certain amount of dollars. So a little bit different than I think was originally explained. But using their parameters and what they use, they use basically dollars to send out the alerts. So you can manipulate it so that it meets your need, and if it doesn't, I feel like we've had full day trainings and pitches with this group. If there's an enhancement that they think or that we think should be made, I think they'd be up for listening to it and helping us come up with a solution.
To Councilmember Kirby's point about people being accustomed to doing things on their smartphones already, we do have a population within the Sueur that doesn't have smartphones. The senior citizens, some of those don't have that. I'm assuming that staff is going to go ahead and schedule training to make sure that everybody's knowledgeable in regards to what's going to be going on.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have some in-person trainings where staff will always be available to help people through this. We have a utility billing coordinator this is going to be their baby and really help grow it. But we'll also try to do some multimedia things which may or may not help that demographic of population that you're talking about. But I think the big thing to really send home is that we're here available, for people to reach out and use us as a resource to set some of these things up, because we're going to have to learn how to use it. We're going to have to become the experts, and we're going to have to be able to train anybody that wants to come in. So it should be pretty easy. I have a version of this that I use that my electric provider. These are screenshots from my phone, so don't judge me for my energy usage. But it's really pretty simple to use, and you can customize anything you want as far as graphs go. But you can see general trends. On the right-hand side, that's for all of 2018. You can see daily usage and kind of see when somebody comes home and turns on the lights and does things, and there's a little spike. So you can get that. All this information is available the next day that the graphs are. But if you want a real time, you can look at real time rates as of that day, and they're usually we can have it set up anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, but usually it's set up as an hour because just the amount of pings that it takes to gather all that data. An hour is generally sufficient for everybody.
And to be clear, is there any additional charge to the customer to make the transition over to this system and to use this system in the future?
No, there will be an ongoing cost here of that $5,700 per month. But there's no plan. This is something that we budgeted for. It's been worked into the rates that are currently there. So there won't be we're getting this software and now we're going to increase rates by 10% to do so. So it's something that we've been able to incorporate. The biggest thing, and I don't know if this has been said, the biggest thing is that ultimately this will help us be more efficient as a city. And when we have our audit presentation on June 10th, you'll see, there's issues with our utility billing, and I've talked about it in the past and how we're finding things, we're working through things. This will, I can't guarantee this, but it should have a rate of return of like 2 years, we think. When you look at it, it's less than 1% of the actual revenues that we see through all of our enterprise funds, but really there's some things that we, one, have trouble running reports in Tyler and getting the information we need to analyze what's going on, and two, there's so many different rate codes and the way it's linked up in our Tyler system, it's almost impossible to make an update to each account unless you just go into each account and make an update. So, and even then, we wouldn't be able to get the reports that we need for like gallons pumped versus gallons billed, and electric billed versus or electric we're billed versus what we bill our customers. Those reports are just, they're very difficult to even get. That they're impossible to get right now, and it's frustrating because we need to know that information.
Any other questions? Councilmember Sullivan.
Jasper, does that 5,700 that you talked about, does that number go up or down with the number of paper bills that we send out, or is that just a set number?
Yes, so it will. So that 57, I think 5,700. I think we're assuming 2,500 bills.
2,500 accounts.
2,500 accounts that will get bills. So, assuming that 50% or whatever of the people that sign up for paperless billing, that number will go down. If everybody signs up for paperless billing, it goes down to that 5,000, a little over 5,000 number. So, if it can go up if we get more people, but it's a conservative estimate because right now, I'd estimate about 35% of people are paperless. So if there's extreme growth in the city, there's room for that not to really affect it.
Do we ever run any incentives to go paperless with current customers?
We don't, but that's something that we've talked about doing. Maybe do a $5 bill credit if they sign up for paperless or something like that, where we'll see that in 6 months. That return. So we've talked about it. We just haven't done it yet with our current system.
Any other questions? Councilmember Favolis.
A $5 bill credit would almost make up for the latest fee that we put on for stormwater.
Pretty close.
Would be real close.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Go ahead and entertain a motion then to approve the iView final proposal for the conversion of utility billing software to the NISC.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion?
We need a cost.
Yeah, that's the only thing I was going to throw in there. I kind of have a revised, so NISC for a total project cost not to exceed that $133,200 in 2019. So it's defined, and if it, for whatever reason, there's a snag or a hiccup, and we're going to exceed or go through our contingency, which I don't think we will, but if that ever would happen, we'd come back to council and talk about what's going on at that point. So I think it's fair to put in a do not exceed number into the.
Let me go ahead and rephrase the motion and entertain a motion to approve the iView final proposal for the conversion of utility billing software to NISC for a total project cost not to exceed $133,200 in 2019.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. We now move on to line item 8, Charlie, which is the Public Services Division update. City Administrator Krugel.
Mayor Hague, members of the City Council. This is something that I think we're going to try to do quarterly because we have a lot of things going on, especially in our Public Services Department. So the idea is that around quarterly we'll bring Rich in and he can give an update on what's going on in the Public Services Department. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rich.
Director Kuchera.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, department's a little busy, and just wanted to give you a little brief synopsis of what we've been working on this quarter. So, out at the airport, Informap, you'll see that's kind of across the board for public services. That's our asset management software. We do have it installed. We have training scheduled for next Wednesday and Thursday. So that will digitize all the forms that staff uses out in the field right now. They'll tie them to the asset, and they'll continuously monitor them and generate work orders and keep it paperless. And all the public services full-time staff will have access to that. It also has a mapping feature, so we can start creating mapping inventory of our street signs, of our tree inventory, of our sidewalks, a lot of things that aren't up to date yet, and some things that are not in the correct place. So, airport, Andy's also been out there working, getting the site ready for the fly-in coming up this weekend already. Wow, that was this weekend. Got the outside water turned on, and we've been talking on the taxi lane extension project. So, community center at the fitness project went over well. I think it looks great. There's a few touch-ups here and there to get done yet. Outdoor pool staffing, they have everybody hired. Training is scheduled for tomorrow. Summer ice, the water is going on currently. Gym fitness, the wall design, still looking for someone to give us a design. And bleacher heaters, we got them picked out. Now we're just looking for a contractor to install them.
Before you move on, what kind of feedback are we receiving regarding the community center improvements?
There's some good, and some of the equipment is a little over the top, and we're looking to, not over the top, but a little hard for some people to understand at first, so we're trying to make little cheat sheets for them on how to use them, to simplify it for them. We've told any of them if they want a tutorial, just ask staff, someone will go up there with them, show them how to do everything, walk them through it, so.
City Administrator Kudo.
Thank you. Right now, so if anybody wants to learn how to run any of the machines, we have 2 personal trainers that can do that. You just schedule an appointment. They'll go out, no cost to you, and they'll show you how to use every single piece of equipment that's up there if you're interested. So there are some changes, as Rich stated, but in general, the feedback I've gotten is once you get kind of used to it, it's changed, but you know the equipment meets the need. So.
Councilmember Cavalies.
And you know, one of the things that I noticed about our community center up in that room is that it's one of the only facilities that I know of, like its type, that doesn't have a staff desk upstairs. Doesn't have a space for a stand-up desk where you can have somebody there that people can ask questions or talk with. So.
We can look into that and look at maybe having somebody be up there during some of our busy times for sure, and getting a station set up. You know, our personal trainers are up there. Occasionally, we can look at getting them some more hours and maybe rotating some staff up there. I think that's a good idea.
Well, generally, what they'll wind up doing is have like a stand-up desk. They'll have a computer sitting there, something that they can work while they're there, but be there to be able to answer questions. Because that's if there's any place inside of that facility that people are going to have questions, it's going to be about that equipment.
Great, Chair, and then continue, please.
Facilities, yeah, work on access control system installations, implementations. That's numerous city buildings involved in that. HVAC is installed at the streets and parks. That eliminated, I think, 3 or maybe 4 window air conditioning units with just 1 central air unit. Outdoor pool is filling with water currently. It's planned for startup next week. City Hall server HVAC project, that did get in last week and went online last week. And if you've been in City Hall, you maybe have heard it. So it's working. And he was also helping out with the fitness project. Summer Ice, as I said, is going, and he was the one that coordinated the bleacher heaters themselves. The electric department is working on installing underground power conversion. They've had a very good response to the conversion rebate program. Highway 112 turned back south of town. He has a contractor lined up to relocate. All the overhead utilities have to be moved down there. Tap sidewalk project, got new street lamps ordered for all the areas, waiting for inventory to show up to get the lights moved. Also working on a meter project. The first round of meters should be in 2 to 4 weeks, and they also got fiber installed to our water treatment plant and over to the fire hall. And they got electric service over to the dog park that will run the dog washing station, or is it grooming station?
Pet washing, sorry. Yeah. So you can bring any pets.
Sorry. Yes. And we oversized it, so if we want to add some lighting to the area, we can do that too.
Jasper, the fire, is that, because I noticed bills going through with Consolidated, is that who you guys are using for the fiber now? Or?
No. So that is through January. So we have consolidated.
There's some phones.
We have some phone stuff, I think, at the Joint Services Building and the Fire Hall, I believe. So those are the only two consolidated.
Okay.
Next slide. Streets and Park, new plow truck that I think we ordered last July has now shown up and is now at Tri-Steel getting the plow and all the other parts put on it. Garden plows have prepped, gravel road and alley repairs have been going on. Chloride treatment is scheduled for next week. Flood cleanup has started. Now we're kind of slowing down again because it looks like we're going to be flooded again. TAP sidewalk project is a big one coming up. Had our first surplus equipment auction with KBID. So far I've heard good things about it, so we're happy with that. Street sweeping is ongoing. All the trees that were purchased by the residents for Arbor Day are planted. And street repairs are going, and we're working on getting a plan or a plan and a map to City Council for what the rest of those funds are going.
The TAP sidewalk project, when do we start putting the sidewalks in? Do we have a time frame?
I can answer that. Rich and I have both been working on this project, but so the next step is for us to get our plans approved by MnDOT, which they've received them, all of the easements. They had some questions, I think about 5 easements that we had to get re-signed due to either somebody passing away or somebody getting a divorce or something like that. So we had to clean up that stuff. We hope to hear back from MnDOT as far as the plan review goes within 2 weeks, I believe. And then hopefully by the end of, for sure by the end of June, we will advertise and we will have bids, hopefully for City Council to approve or evaluate sometime in July. So, and then after that, it'll be end of the summer into the fall when this project is done. So we've gotten some interest from some local contractors about the project, so that's good. I would love to see a local vendor get this project. It would be very nice. So you're looking at sidewalk construction late summer into the fall.
Okay, in regards to the street sweeping, what percentage of the streets have been swept in the Sueur to date? Any idea?
No, sorry. So wastewater staff's been plenty busy with Murphy, especially over the last weekend. There's been, I'm not going to get Johnny riled up till Thursday night, so we'll just save that. Had some check valves, some I&I repairs, still working on plant start, the screen project startup, and then there's quite a few storm sewer repairs going on. The closest one would be right over here behind the library in the alley. There's over 200 feet of pipe that have to be replaced. Water, big thing is the pressure reducing valves. That's a good typo. They're PRVs. The city has numerous ones about town, and they are too. So we don't send high pressure from one area into another area, how we have different pressure zones. So it'll take 90 PSI water and drop it down to 60 PSI. We are unable to find documented maintenance records of those. So we now have a contractor that will come in and service all of them, and now we just have to locate them all. They also completed flow testing for the meadows. That went well. Hydro flushing completed last week, and well 5 repairs are just about wrapping up, so that should be going back online hopefully this week. I think that's it. Questions?
So after you locate them, after the contractor maintains them for whatnot, do we take that back over? Or do we stay with the contractor to take care of them?
We would stay with the contractor to maintain those PRVs. They're very complicated.
Any other questions for Director Kachuk? On behalf of City Council, thank you very much for the presentation and the update regarding everything associated with your department.
Thank you.
Okay. Now move on to line item 8 Delta, which is the City of Sueur assessment policy discussion. City Administrator approval.
Mayor and members of City Council, before you is right now a discussion item that will hopefully turn into an action item sometime in the next couple months. But basically, state statute allows for the city to assess for projects if there's a benefit to the property owner that is adjacent to that, or not, it doesn't even have to be adjacent, if there's a benefit to a property. So essentially I've identified a goal for this exercise, and it's to develop an encompassing assessment policy for the city of Sueur. This is something we can post on our website that people can look at, and really is quite simple compared to a lot of other cities that have them. So I'll go through them. Basically, I've identified 3 areas that we potentially could assess for. We can make that decision. We have in the past made decisions and changed up some things. One thing I want to make a note of is in the council packet, I talked about sidewalk assessments. I misspoke, and we did actually change that assessment policy back in, I believe it was
2010.
June of 2017 to basically to be at 100% city costs for any sidewalk project. So that's in line with what the recommendation would have been. I thought, for some reason, I thought it was just project specific, but it went back, looked at the minutes, and it was all encompassing moving forward. So with that, there are 3 assessment areas that I've identified. One is sidewalk repair, replacement, and new construction. Second being road construction and repair. And the third being utility, new construction, reconstruction, and repair. I'll talk about what the differences are between the 3. There's obviously some, sidewalk versus road that are easy to decipher. But really the utility, and I'll talk about some scenarios in the past that the city has either chosen to assess or not assess for certain projects. And I want to make sure it's very clear that City Council has the ultimate authority to decide if we are going to assess or not assess for a project. So there's a process that we follow, Chapter 429 in the state statute, that defines that process. But ultimately, if City Council doesn't want to assess for a project, they can make that decision. They're not bound by any laws saying that we have to or we can't. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. This is in general what the policy would be for most projects, knowing that City Council has the ultimate decision-making authority. The first one that I want to talk about, sidewalk repair, replacement, and new construction. So our current policy, and this is different than what's in the actual packet, is that 100% of the costs related to sidewalk repair, replacement, and new construction is funded by the city of Sueur using general levy dollars. What we would do and what we've done is we put these types of projects in the capital improvement plan. One thing, if you followed local government here in Sueur, in I believe 2015, City Council established a fund for sidewalk replacement. What we've done is we've taken, I think it was $45,000 per year was allocated for that. What we've said, or what City Council has said, I believe in 2018 during that budget process, was that we were going to close down that fund and we would just budget using the capital improvement plan for sidewalk projects. So we have a pretty hefty one coming up right now this year with the TAP sidewalk project. But moving forward, if there's sections, the personnel and budget, and ultimately City Council will decide, well, how much money do we want to put towards sidewalk maintenance and repair. If you walk around town, there's a lot of sidewalks that need rehab. There's things that we can do to kind of make them last longer, but we're also obligated by the by ADA standards as well to make sure that our sidewalks are accessible to everybody. So there's things that we can look at, but we no longer have a sidewalk fund or dedicated funding for that. It's just all encompassed into the capital improvement plan. Now, proposed changes, there are no proposed changes. It's proposed, staff agrees with the current assessment policy for this. We asked a lot of our homeowners that have sidewalks in front of their houses to maintain that they're clear in the winter and safe in the winter. So, to have them also pay for half of those sidewalks is kind of, they're doing a public service by keeping them clear. The sidewalks serve a public purpose as well, allowing people to walk around town. So I'll move on to the next one, which is, is there a question about sidewalks?
I want to ask a question. Do we have any idea how many blocks of sidewalks we have in the sewer?
I don't, but as soon as Rich gets it all put into the asset management program that he mentioned before, we will know exactly how much and what condition it's in.
Okay, so how many blocks of sidewalks are we putting in this year with the TAP program? 31 blocks of sidewalk. So by looking at this picture that we have up in front of us right now, say we have a sidewalk in front of one of our homes right here, and it's in pretty good shape except for a couple of areas because probably some trees have, lifted the concrete, and that's what we're left with. Do we necessarily have to replace that particular piece of sidewalk, or can it be filled with, blacktop or something like that? Can we use blacktop on our cement to make some fixes at a cheaper rate?
You can, but what you run into is you're still going to have the problems that you see on that picture in a few years. Basically, and this holds true with road construction projects, is that a lot of these issues that you see here are caused by subgrade. So the drainage and the material that's actually underneath the sidewalk, it doesn't drain. Here you need to see some cracks with some weeds growing through it. But in our community, we have a lot of boulevard trees that are lifting and heaving sidewalk panels, which is, it's a product of planting trees probably where they shouldn't. It was probably fine when they were originally planted, but now we're dealing with these massive trees that are damaging the sidewalk. So, if we were just to put asphalt over that, you'd still see the same problems over time. What we would look at is we try to make sure that it meets ADA guidelines. So some of our sidewalks right now are 4 feet or even 3 feet. We'd look at putting in that standard 5-foot walk that you'd see that is ADA accessible. We'd put in the truncated domes, the metal objects with the raised panels that you see at the pedestrian ramps. We use it as an opportunity to upgrade our system so that it is ADA compliant. Now you can put asphalt over things, but it in my opinion, maybe money not spent very well, because you'll end up with the same thing in a very short amount of time.
I was just concerned about trip hazards.
Oh yeah, and if there are major trip hazards, there's things that you can do, like grinding those edges down, where we can do that. In general, what the League of Minnesota City Standard is that a 1 inch or greater lip should be removed. So we try to follow those guidelines.
But to be clear, in regards to making a repair to a sidewalk, unless you take up the existing sidewalk or put in a new sidewalk, it does not have to be the ADA compliance.
I believe so, yeah. So, we run and maybe John could weigh in, we run the risk of anybody at any time making an ADA claim against us. So they could. I mean, you could have somebody make an ADA claim against a sidewalk that's 3 foot and there's 3 foot wide, and there's a 2-inch lip all over. We could. What we do is we try to have a plan in place, and typically if we have a plan in place to replace issue areas, that's sufficient to meet that, as long as we're going towards that direction. I think everybody's aware that it's expensive to do these things.
Okay, Councilmember Fabulous, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. I don't want to even look at the picture, all right? And I don't want to draw attention to any particular person or any particular area. But when we have new sidewalks that go on, or even sidewalks that have issues like that with grass going up through them, homeowners that have sidewalks that are on their property, we say we have to keep them clear of snow and ice and so on. But in the summertime, it doesn't seem as though we say anything about keeping the grass out of the cracks and things, because they do become trip hazards, and that is an issue. Even if somebody in a wheelchair were going to use that sidewalk, I mean, it's a hindrance to begin with. And the other thing is too, is when we have brand new sidewalks that go in, and people with gravel driveways, and now the gravel driveways are now all over the brand new sidewalks, and their drainage from the driveways in that gravel is all over the sidewalks. What do we do in situations like that? And are the homeowners supposed to be taking care of this?
All right, so there's quite a few questions there. I'll address the grass and the sidewalk one first. So, in my opinion, the sidewalk should never get to that point. And the way that we have our current assessment policy set up for sidewalks is that's the city's responsibility. Now, as a responsible homeowner, you'd hope that they would maybe mow that or knock that down, or I don't want to say spray with Roundup or anything like that, but maintain it so that it's reasonable. So if there's a good plan in place, it should never get to that point where it's doing what you see on that picture. So, as far as the gravel driveways go, right now in city code, that is an approved surface that can be used. A lot of cities have gone away from that, have required it to be asphalt, but you have to keep in mind that's an additional cost, and there's a rollout time period that potentially could take years for that to happen. But right now, that's fine, and there isn't anything that we in particular can do or say or write a letter about if somebody's gravel driveway is washing out onto the sidewalk. If that's something that we want to look at as far as the city goes, and have our require that driveways are asphalt or concrete, we can do that. If we were a MS4 municipal sanitary storm sewer system city, we would likely be required to do that. But because we're under 5,000 people, it's not required to have an asphalt or like a paved surface driveway. So we could look at that. The rollout would be difficult. Moving forward, any new houses are required to have asphalt. It's the ones that are kind of grandfathered in that we don't have any authority or plan to change at this moment. So we hope that it doesn't happen, and if it does, that we're addressing it, or the homeowner's addressing it. One thing I'll point out, and maybe this is a little different, is the trail along Kingsway. Everybody I think knows where that is. There's a I don't know, an 18-inch little strip of gravel in between the road surface and the trail. That's a huge problem. We have people that it's the same thing, where we're getting washout of that type of material onto the trail, and people are wiping out and having trouble rollerblading, skateboarding, things like that. Rich has looked into what it costs to fix what I would call a design flaw or poor design of that area. I think we were I don't know at the time, but I think we were kind of trying to do it for as inexpensive as possible. But now we have some issues there. So we've looked at that, and it's a fairly expensive fix. So there's things, and I don't know if we'll talk about it during the budget process if we want to try to get something into our CIP, but it's a problem, just the way that was designed. So there's things that we can look at as a city too to make it better as well.
The gravel also would be a problem for the alleys that we have in the sewer. Many of them are gravel, so they're running up to our sidewalks and streets as well. So we're getting gravel or class 5.
Correct. Yep. Any other questions about the general sidewalk repair, replacement, and construction? So moving on to road construction and repair. This is probably the one that most people are familiar with. So right now, the city does not have any current formal policy as far as assessments go. We had Morningside Court, that area. There were some issues that the city ended up having some legal battles with some residents in that area, and I think we've kind of before the 2nd Street project that we did in 2017, we took kind of a long break between doing these assessments. So one thing I'll keep in mind is that the previous way that it was done, it was almost like a project by project basis. What this would do is this would say, this is how we're going to, if city council chooses to assess a project. So there's no formal policy now. What the proposed change would be, and I'll read the language, all road construction projects that replace any portion of the road surface shall utilize a benefit appraisal to determine the benefit to the adjacent property owner, of which will be used to determine the assessment levied against said property. Projects that are included in this assessment policy include, but are not limited to, mill and overlays, reclamation, and full surface reconstruction projects. Projects that are exempt from this assessment policy include, but are not limited to, seal coating, crack sealing, spot curb repair, or any other normal road surface maintenance. City council will adopt an assessment role and will have the ability to adjust final levy assessments. So what this is essentially doing is saying, if there's any major project that happens, like a mill and overlay, a reclamation. So mill and overlay, maybe take 2 inches of asphalt off the top, you put 3 inches down. You get a new road surface, but essentially you still have part of the original asphalt plus all the subgrade stays intact. A reclamation, what that does is it takes all of the asphalt and some of the subgrade, and it maybe grinds it all up, maybe put some more subgrade down, and then put probably 2 lifts of asphalt on that. So it's kind of a modified, it's not quite a full reconstruction project. A full reconstruction is everything on the surface, right away to right away. So you're looking at sidewalks, you're looking at curb, you're looking at subgrade, you're looking at surface, so asphalt. So the things that are considered maintenance, in my opinion, and most people's opinion, are seal coating, crack sealing, spot curb repair, or any other normal road maintenance. So if there's something else, we want to do fog sealing in some areas because something else is going on. You know, those are the things that we wouldn't assess for. Now I'll give some examples. So 2017, the North 2nd Street project, we levied those assessments. We used the benefit appraisal, and it just seemed like the process went pretty well. The time before that, I believe Morningside Court, they assessed on a per foot basis. So there was a policy, there was a developed price per foot on the project, and that's what your assessment would be. An example, and I think I talked a little bit about this either in my response letter or in the actual agenda item, but on the 2nd Street project, the total assessment for a residential property was $7,500. On, depending on the size of your lot, you could have had, on the Morningside project, you could have been anywhere from $8,000 to $14,000, $15,000. So pretty substantial, and that's kind of where we ended up not being able to say, yeah, this is what the benefit is, and that's why we had some legal issues with Morningside Court. The key part of all of these are that we'll do a benefit appraisal, which there's a little bit more upfront cost. For example, 2nd Street project, that benefit appraisal was $9,000 for them to do. I believe there's about 35 properties on there. We're looking at doing one for the 112 Turnback project as well, and there's, I think, 230 projects on that one. So really, it's you do your homework up front, and you're ready for any legal challenges, and you're basically ready to go with this policy. Whereas some cities, what they'll do is they'll go through a benefit appraisal on one project, and then say, here's our rate for 3 years. Well, a lot can happen with the housing market in 3 years. It might work because some of those communities might do 1 or 2 projects a year, where we're maybe going to do one every other year. So those numbers, in my opinion, wouldn't hold, when we run the risk of potentially, having a property owner saying that the amount assessed doesn't equate to the benefit that they've received.
South 4th Street, that was a specific benefit appraisal as well, was it not?
No. So I'll talk about South 4th, the one you're talking about, the utility project, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll talk about that on the next one and use that as an example too, because we didn't assess for that project. So, but yeah, so basically road construction, repair, anything outside of normal maintenance, we'd have the option to assess, and if we would choose to assess, we would use a benefit appraisal. That's the road construction and repair assessment policy in a nutshell. So are there any questions about road construction and repair?
Let me just get one thing clear. Really, the next one you're going to talk about relates to this. If you rip a street up, you're going to do the utilities and the surface, likely. So they're really parallel to each other or related, correct?
Likely, yep. There will be some unique situations where utilities are just done, in situations, I'll use Woods Drive, for example, where we didn't really do much for surface improvements. We improved the gravel road, but it wasn't considered a full reconstruction project. So there's this hybrid, and really, Councilmember Krogman's point, if we get to the utility portion, we're likely looking at a full reconstruction project. And in that case, it would be one benefit appraisal for the whole project, and we wouldn't do one for the surface, one for the utilities. It'd all be under one umbrella. But the reason why it's split out is there's some unique situations that could come up where it's just a utility project that I think we need to have a policy for.
So it's basically year 0, 40-year pavement management plan that we're actually talking about the utilities.
Potentially, yep. You should, like, your utilities should last 40 years. I mean, they should last longer than that, but planning purposes, 40 years if they're new. You know, there's things that are existing that, you know, the product isn't as good as it is today.
So I say that because in a 40-year pavement management plan that we've adopted, at year 20, we're gonna go ahead and take up the road surface down to class 5, but we're not necessarily gonna go ahead and do any digging below that street level. That only happens at year 0 of a 40-year cycle.
Correct, yeah, we hope. You know, there's things that come up, like if we need to let's say we have a sewer main that was put in 20 years ago, and then all of a sudden now it's at 75% capacity, and we have something coming up, a housing development. We might have to tear that up prematurely because it isn't sized correctly. So there's certain situations where it might happen sooner than 40 years.
Any other questions before we go into the utility portion?
All right, so utility, new construction, reconstruction, and repair. So we don't have a current policy with this. This is very similar to the road assessment policy. All utility, new construction, reconstruction, and repair projects shall utilize a benefit appraisal to determine the benefit to the property, which will be used to determine the assessment levied against said property. Utilities included in this assessment policy include electric, water, wastewater, stormwater, and street lighting. City Council will adopt an assessment role and will have the ability to adjust final levied assessment. So I'll use two different projects as an example. One is the South 4th Street project that was done in 2016 and 2017, where we replaced the water main on that project, and that's all we did. City Council chose not to assess for that project, and you know, that was a City Council decision. We did spot repair of some curb, we put in a new surface, and ultimately it was a 2-phase project, and ultimately the whole road got new asphalt put on it. I don't know the history or why. You know, that was discussed in planned in 2015, executed in 2016. But on the flip side of that, you'll have something like Woods Drive and Doppy Lane where utilities were put in and then they were assessed. You know, to me that's just a utility project. Doppy Lane didn't receive any surface improvements, but there's water main and sewer main on that road. And City Council at that time chose to assess those property owners. That was, I think, it was in 2003, I believe. And those assessments just fell off in 2018. And some of those, because those are larger properties and because of the assessment policy, some of those assessments were between $15,000 and $25,000. So pretty substantial. But two ends of the spectrum where, you know, we decided to do it for Woods Drive, but we didn't do it for South 4th Street. So what this would say is that unless City Council decides to not assess, we would assess for those utility-only projects, and we would follow the benefit appraisal process. One thing to keep in mind, and I know there were some questions Councilmember Faveli's had about the utility aspect of this assessment policy. In general, when we assess for a project, it doesn't pay for the whole project. It's in general about 20% of the project is what the assessments actually pay for. The other 80% come from the utility fees or whatever that difference is. So it's one of those things. Communities can say that there's communities out there that just say we're not going to assess. We're going to just roll everything into rates and everybody's going to pay their portion. That works for utilities pretty well. It's difficult with street improvements because then you're really looking at the general levy and you're looking at, okay, are we doing a project this year? Okay, we're gonna jump up 10% for this project that we want to do for our general levy. You know, the assessment law is in place and it helps us kind of fund some of these projects if we need to. The 112 Turnback project, for example, you know, let's say there's 230 properties on that project. Let's say the average assessment is $10,000. You know, that's including commercial, industrial, residential, just the average. You're looking at, you know, $2.3 million that you could potentially get back in assessment dollars on a pretty large project. We don't know the total cost yet, but you know, those assessment dollars, they'll trickle in over the life of that bond. We'll earn 1% interest, I think, is what we typically do.
And then, over the life of the bond, if it's a 10-year bond or a 15-year bond, that money will trickle in through property taxes. So it gives the property owner some additional flexibility too. So, any questions about new utility construction, reconstruction, and repair for the assessment policy? So, and actually, this just stemmed an idea that, in this policy, we should probably put in there what the percentage rate over the bond rate that we would get if we assess. So what we've done, and I alluded to it about 30 seconds ago, is we've been 1 point above what we sell our bond for. So in 2017, we sold our bond for 3.46%. The property owners that chose to put that on their property taxes, they're assessed at 4.46%. So 1 point above is generally pretty good. The rates that we've received at that time are good. Now they're probably about a point higher. We'd probably get 4.5% for a bond. So that should be something, in the future, if there's an assessment policy formalized, that should also be in there as guidance for staff when this happens.
Jasper, real quick question. The county manages the payment system for us. Do they get a percentage? Do we pay them something? Does that come out of our 1%, for example?
No, it does not. So it's a pass-through for things like utility bill certification. They do put something on there for an administrative fee, but for these assessment rolls, we set the rates. So we actually give them an amortization schedule for each property, and then they plug it into their system, and then it just basically gets added onto the property tax statement.
So if I understand what our purpose in action is, we are to go ahead and have a discussion about this, and then this will be brought back for a vote at a later date.
Yeah, so, now it might be new to some at council. If there's questions about the assessment policy, if there's things you think I've missed just from this conversation, maybe talking about it out loud, there's some things I would like to add to it. But in general, it seems like, it's a fairly simple assessment policy, whereas some get very complicated where it's, if you're a corner lot, you pay 100% on your adjacent side, and your non-adjacent side, you pay 2/3 of the assessment rate that's determined by council. This benefit appraisal process, there's a little bit more additional cost up front, but legally we're covered, and legally it's closer to what the actual benefit is. If I remember right from our benefit appraisal on 2nd Street, the actual benefit for a residential property came in at like $8,500. What they did is they said, well, for market fluctuations, we're going to recommend that it's $7,500. So you even have an additional layer of, I just call insurance, there as well when they look at it. So, it essentially eliminates any legal questions or legal questioning of our assessments. That somebody could still do it, and they have every right to do it if they want to question the benefit to their property. But as a city, we'll have our research and our data that we can rely on.
So both under the road construction repair assessment policy and the utility new construction reconstruction repair assessment policy, the last sentence I think is very key. City council will adopt an assessment role and will have the ability to adjust final levied assessments. So just to be clear, as a project comes up, we adopt the policy, for example, project comes up a couple of years down the road, it's going to be up to that city council to go through and make that determination.
Yes, yep, correct. So this essentially lets staff know and document that there's a discussion about this at the city council level. The city council that passes this policy discussed it, and this is what they thought was best at that time. Other city councils could build off of it, change it, modify it, and ultimately city council has the ultimate say as far as if you're going to levy assessments or not.
So we would be doing this specifically to have something on the books, which currently we do not, other than what we have for the sidewalk policy.
Correct. Yep. And even that, I'd like to have, and city clerk, Stacy Lawrence is working on a policy document book that encompasses all these different policies. It'll be not only helpful to staff, but city council and the public to be able to see these things, because you know, even myself, who was part of the discussion about the sidewalk, I had I didn't remember it correctly. So, you know, to be able to have a document that you can go to and you can look at, you know, what's the assessment policy for this type of project? Well, here it is, and you can say, well, this is the building block to start the discussion.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Jasper, maybe you can explain a little bit about why under the road construction repair policy, we exclude repairs from being able to be assessed, but then when we go into the utilities, we do assess that back. What changes there, I guess, is my bigger question.
Well, so that this is where we could do a little bit more clarification, but repairs in general, like, let's say, like what we're doing right now, some of the patching work that we're doing out there, that under the intent of this would be, we wouldn't assess for that. You know, road repairs, curb repairs, we wouldn't assess, but under the utility project or utility assessment, if let's say something's damaged, and you know, we would then do that. That's a policy call. If we don't want to do that and we want to say, well, this water main broke, I wouldn't consider that a accessible. You know, it's kind of project basis, so we could clarify that a little bit more.
And maybe that's where my question
Yeah.
was driving from, because I was curious, like, how do you assess a water main? Who does that water main affect potentially?
Yeah, a lot of people, right?
So that's why I guess where my question was coming from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll try to draft up some language to exclude some of those, you know, one-off type repairs that we see. Really, the intent is if we need to replace, you know, 2 blocks or a block of water main because of some reason, you know, it's 4 inch and it needs to be 8 inch, you know, that type of thing, we would then be able to assess for it. But you know, those water main breaks, things like that, not so much. So we could clarify that a little bit more to kind of mimic that road construction policy.
Councilmember Kirby, do you have anything to bring to Jasper's attention that might be a concern of yours regarding this moving forward?
How do those assessments work when somebody sells the property?
Yeah, so let's say somebody has got an assessment on their property from the Second Street project. That's a private negotiation. Let's say the owner or the buyer wants that off the property taxes. You negotiate that into the sale price of the property. Let's say another scenario, somebody's going to come in and we have a scheduled project, let's say in 2020 for this, and we kind of know what the assessment will be. The seller is required to, you know, tell the potential buyer that there's a project coming up and, you know, there's a potential $10,000 assessment. Then that can be worked out in the actual purchase agreement between the private entities. But once that special assessment is levied against the tax roll, it's on the property. It travels with the property from owner to owner.
If somebody elects to just pay it right away,
You can, yeah, you can. You always have that option to pay it off right away, interest free. Otherwise, as soon as usually it's the city council adopts the assessment roll, and then we give like a 30-day window for people to come in and pay, and then after that 30 days, that's when that interest starts accruing.
City Attorney Scoggins.
Just a couple more practical matters with special assessments. That's part of any standard purchase agreement. Notice of whether there's been notice or whether there has been levied special assessments and it's dealt with then. And also, anytime we do a closing in the city of Sueur, I think it's $25, we do a special assessment search and through the city clerk to clarify whether there's any pending special assessments or if the property is clear. So it's something that's always transparent in any kind of real estate transaction.
I'm very glad you brought that up. Councilmember Roloff, anything that you can come up with that you would like to add?
No, I don't. No, I don't at this time. But I will actually take time to review it some more, and then I will forward my questions to Jasper.
Thank you. Councilmember Huntington.
No, Mayor, I don't have anything.
Councilmember Sullivan.
I already addressed my question.
Okay, Councilmember Values.
Everything that I had, my questions earlier have been answered.
Okay. Councilmember Groveland.
Nothing.
Okay, this is a non-actionable item, so thank you all for your input. Thank you very much for the explanation. Expect to see this on your docket sometime between now and the 22nd of July. Okay, we now move on to 8 Echo, which is the Planning Commission appointments, city administrator approval.
Mayor Hayden, members of City Council, we have 2 applications for a vacant Planning Commission seat. That seat currently has a term that ends on December 31st of this year. One thing to keep in mind, and I just want to make sure that I want to make a point whenever we talk about these types of advisory. Well, this isn't really an advisory. This is required by city code. But your planning commission, in the context of city council and the planning commission relationship, really your planning commission should have the same goals as the city council. They're the ones that are bringing things forward. That's one thing to keep in mind when we're appointing people, to make sure to see once if they have those same goals as city council, because really they're working for city council, working to obtain the goals that city council sets every year. So we have 2 applicants, Andrea Fatchis, I believe, and then Melissa Huntington as well. So their applications have been included in the packet. I know we've already acted on personal information. With that, I'll turn it over to City Council, and what we're looking for is just basically a motion to appoint one of them. You can also choose not to appoint anybody if you want. It's really up to City Council. This seat goes until the end of the year, and after that, there will be another appointment for the seat, potentially.
Okay, City Council, we have 2 applicants in front of us. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for an appointment to our planning commission.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion if I will.
Please.
I would move that we appoint Melissa Huntington to fill that term.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. And I would like to go ahead and make a motion for Andrea Fatchis.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so we now have a vote. We have 2 candidates. We both have motions and seconds on both of them. Now it comes up to a vote.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll be abstaining from the vote.
Okay. Go ahead.
If I may, just a point of order. So we have a motion and a second for Ms. Huntington. There should be some discussion about that and a potential vote on that one first.
Okay.
And then we can entertain other motions. So I just wanted to, we can't have 2 motions on the table at once. We have to address the first one that the motion was for. So
Stand corrected. So discussion in regards to Ms. Huntington. Anything? So we have no discussion?
I think if we're gonna kind of go with the philosophy that we're gonna find somebody who's got the same vision and the same goals we all do, I think Melissa would fit the bill there quite well, obviously, because, her husband's on the council.
So any other discussion? So in regards to Melissa Huntington, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. So we have a 5-2 vote, the way it looks to be.
4-2.
Or 4-2, yeah, 4-2 vote. So Melissa Huntington is now our member of our planning commission. Congratulations to Ms. Huntington. Okay, so now the last thing on the docket. 8 Foxtrot, the Kinetic Leasing Capital Lease Item Approval Request.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, this is in addition to our capital lease approval process that we have. We have 3 items on here. We have payment to Nuss Truck and Equipment for the plow truck that Mr. Kuchera mentioned during his update. We did order this thing in July of 2017, I believe. 18, sorry, that was a really long time ago. and we've just received it, so it'll be ready to go for this snow season. It'll be a good addition to our fleet that we have. We have Informat, that's that asset management software that we're rolling out, and then asphalt hot box accessories for $2,400. That asphalt hot box is something that allows us to put hot mix asphalt in a trailer and fill potholes and do some patching around town. So what we're looking for is a motion approving the submission of the payment request forms to Kinetic Leasing for those 3 items.
One motion to all 3 of those? I make a motion.
So we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, we're now at the comments, reports, and items of appreciation portion. Why don't we go ahead and start with Council Member Sullivan tonight?
Had a transit meeting 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, and I apologize, I don't have my packet with me. I was trying to think back what we talked about there.
Nothing there.
We have MRPUC on Thursday. Other than that, I don't have anything to report. Just like to commend our parks staff and everybody else that helped with the community center. I'm hearing a lot of good things from there.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Yeah, we do have our MRPUC meeting today. Earlier this month, Monty Council know that Jack King stepped down from being chair. Jack decided that he's still going to stay on for the rest of his term, which is for the rest of the year, but he doesn't want to be anymore. I think he was saying that he's 83 years old. I think that this is the last position that he's going to take, and he has been the mayor of this town and on all kinds of boards and commissions, and I think that we all owe him a thank you for his service to this town. Let's see. Also, I got a chance to go up to the community center while they were doing the install and getting things ready, and it was pretty cool to be able to watch. City staff was handling things quite well, even under the pressures of trying to get things ready for people to come in. I think the place looks really, really nice. They were trying to keep up on all of when you do an install, stuff flies everywhere. People are moving as fast as they can possibly move, and city staff was right behind them cleaning up, making sure that everything was nice. So kudos to them, thank you very much. And then the last one is for Jasper. I have a request. The community garden wants to know when the water is going to be turned on. They're planting things and they can't water. No. Friday is supposed to be a little warm, so.
So we've talked about this internally with Rich. I believe it's this week, right? Yeah. So with the with Randy Snow leaving and the connections with the Methodist Church, right? Presbyterian, sorry, church, gaining access to it, because they're the ones that actually provide the water. It's not, we have to get into the building and be able to do that. So I think we've coordinated and contacted the right people, and I think it's gonna start this week. So I see Rich is nodding yes.
Did you have anything more?
No, I'm done, thank you.
Councilmember Broken.
Planning Commission, as was indicated earlier, did not meet a week or two ago because they didn't have a quorum. They're going to do a work session on the 6th of June to work on the zoning code, and then on the 13th they'll have a regular meeting. So that will be next week, basically, for them. The Airport Commission will also be meeting on the 6th of June. That'll be our second meeting this year. We're doing quarterly. There is a fly-in at the airport this weekend, starting on Friday, going through Sunday. It is not sponsored by the city. It's not our event. It's not the Lions one. It's basically done by the tenants there. and I think they call it antique aircraft, which is sort of scary. I wouldn't want to be in an antique aircraft, but they're basically older aircrafts. They're not that old, quite frankly. But I don't have the time or any more information. The city has indicated, our airport manager is working with them to make sure we have proper safety procedures out at the airport. That's good news. Related to the 112 turnback, the MMPA, Minnesota Municipal Power Agency, which of course runs the hometown bioenergy out at the other end of town, has just sold some property to the county so they have a wider area for the road in that area. It doesn't really affect operations. They had to be careful because there's a holding pond there. It does not affect the holding pond, but it's a relatively minor dollar amount, about $11,000 that will come to our MMPA from the county, but it helps facilitate the construction of the road. So that'll be a good thing for that area. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Huntington.
Let's see, last Wednesday I had an HRA board meeting. We're still processing the grants and stuff we got, 1.4 million. Discussing, Executive Director Monica has been working on the language of what's going to be, what we need to follow. So that project probably won't start until next year anyways, but we're thrilled that we got this money to do that, what we're going to do there. And to piggyback on what Johnny says, Jack King happens to be on my board there as well, and he's a great asset to my board at HRA, so and a great guy too. So that's all I got there.
Okay. Councilmember Roloff.
I only have one thing. With this recent rain, I know some of the streets kind of got and a few spots kind of some potholes. I just want to encourage the ex-residents of town to keep on actually submitting those into the city so those can get actually filled.
Okay. Councilmember Kirby.
I'm going to be real brief. I'm just coming off a triple header, so I had a hospital board meeting at 3 o'clock, EDA at 5:15, and here I sit now, so I'm kind of running out of gas. Hospital board, some of the things we covered real quick are some professional reappointments. Kind of excited about some of the staff up there. Got a report from the chief operating officer, Ben Nielsen, up there. And there's going to be a summer conference that I'm going to try to attend with Ridgeview this summer. That'll be July 13th. As far as EDA, kind of covered the land purchase for the INH property. That's going to hopefully go through September 1st. That's 7.5 acres, so hopefully we don't get too many challenges there. And then we talked about some of the financial challenges at the mall. So that's all I have.
City Clerk / HR Communications Director. Anything, Stacy, tonight?
Go.
Okay. What our City Attorney? Anything, John?
Real briefly, we're working with Jasper and the staff to get the easements for the sidewalk project filed or recorded with the county. And a side note, I believe it's last week of school, so congratulations to the class of 2019 and their future endeavors.
Okay, I got a couple of things here before I pass it on to our City Administrator. I received a letter from Senator Rich Graham, who, as you all know, represents District 20, which includes Sueur. And it says, May 13th, 2019, Mayor Gregory Hagan Council. Dear Mayor Hagan City Councilors, congratulations on being awarded the 2019 Small Cities Development Program grant from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's always great to see resources and federal dollars coming back to the 20th District. If I can be of assistance to you on a state legislative issue, please do not hesitate to contact me. Again, I would like to say congratulations, sincerely, Senator Rich Graham. So, the good work that was done over there at HRA by Monica and the rest of the team, it gets noticed. And Senator Graham took the time to go ahead and send us a letter acknowledging that. So I want to pass that on to you. I too would like to echo the compliments that Councilmember Favalise and Councilmember Huntington brought up in regards to Mayor King. He has served this city for many, many years, and he continues to serve now in a capacity that is not the chair of the Charter Commission, but he's still serving. So there's something proud about serving our fellow citizens. And you know, here's a man that obviously did it for many, many years and continues to do so. So congratulations to Mayor King. And do we have any idea who the new chair is now for the Charter Commission? Was that voted on?
Yeah, Bob Broder.
Okay. And let's see, I believe that's all I have. How about our city administrator?
I'll be real brief. So, Rich and I, we were talking this morning, we're going to schedule an event for people to come out and look at all the new equipment that's been purchased from the city. I think we're looking at, is it July 22nd, around there? Or no, September 22nd. Sorry. So we're going to have an event. We're going to try to bring all the new equipment, all the equipment, have it be like a 4 to 6 or 4 to 7 event, and people can come look at it, see what we have going on here at the city. I think it'll be a fun time. We'll try to coordinate it. Another event that I've heard about, and I don't know if it's under wraps, is something called the Dog Days of Summer or something like that, where we're looking to do something in conjunction with some of our service organizations with the dog park. So a couple of fun events that we have coming up into the future. One thing I'll touch briefly on is the plan, or the EDA approved a purchase agreement with INH Properties, which is a big deal because now all three of the partners, we're all agreeable to the general terms, and now we get to start working together and negotiating and all that good stuff. So I'm excited for that, and you'll see some action as far as development agreements, TIF agreements, surveys, things like that coming forward to City Council. So the idea and the date listed in the purchase agreement is September 1st for the properties to close. That's going to be the goal, is to get it done by then. So a lot of things need to happen between now and then, but I think we have a good process that we can follow, and the EDA is kind of in the position to figure out what they want to do with their potential 19 acres of land that they will purchase. If they want to develop it, try to sell it to a developer, do some sort of hybrid model, all those things are up in the air. But really, it's a good thing for the community. It really fits in well with their comprehensive plan, and we're making progress to get some additional housing options in the community, which is good. So that's all I have.
You may want to mention this.
Oh, yeah. We also got some good news regarding LGA. So I sent something out to City Council earlier today saying, they ended up passing, the state legislature passed a bill, a budget that restored LGA to 2002 levels. What that means for the city of Sueur is that our LGA will increase about $40,000 between what we'll get in 2019 and what we'll get in 2018. So that's a good thing for the community. Those are dollars that we can put into infrastructure, put into our roads, things like that. So it's a very good thing. We're kind of, it might be a little turning point to say, we're past the recession. Really the LGA was completed because of the 2008, 2009, 2010, housing crisis and recession that we were in. So we're back up to where we were in 2002, and hopefully the economy stays strong, and it's a big component of our budget that we have. So it's roughly a third, about a little under a third or 30% of our actual operating budget for our general levy. So it's a big deal. If it would go away, we'd be forced to make some tough decisions. So it's good.
If I may, also members of this council worked with our senator and representative and other people in the legislature. So it does pay to work with those people.
Yes, yes, it does.
Literally pays.
I appreciate everybody for taking your time to send out the emails or make the phone calls, because obviously they hurt, and I'm very grateful. Thank you very much to the state of Minnesota for recognizing the fact that we need that extra LGA money. Anything else?
No.
Okay. I will go ahead and entertain a motion for adjournment.
So.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
He did today, earlier. No, wait, let me, I'll send it to you personally. You gotta click on it, you gotta search for a category of city.
Where you going?
You know, it's urban residential.